Hello and namaste to everyone. This is Bhimraj Limpu. Uh, Currently, I'm studying at Kathmandu University School of Education and I'm pursuing a master's in mathematics education. Okay, so today I'm making a short video on literature review and its types. It is from the subject research methodology, and my course facilitator is Associate Professor Indramani Shrestha. Okay, introduction. So, what is literature review? So, it is a review which helps us in summarizing and analyzing previous research on our topic. So, like what type of research or which research you are going to do. So, it gives you some idea about what you have to do, what should be done. It helps by providing knowledge. It helps us to understand what is known and what needs for further study, and it provides a foundation for the new research. Okay, thematic review. It focuses on themes and patterns in existing literature. So like when you review some of the research papers, then it will give you idea about the patterns that have been followed by the previous researchers. It helps in identifying key patterns in existing research. Like for example, like a study on mathematics anxiety and its impact on studies, reviewing strategies to mitigate anxiety. So like here you can identify the themes, like it is on mathematical anxiety. The next one is theoretical review. So it focuses on existing theories related to the research topic, like on which topic you are going to do research. Like there are already lots of research papers available, so you can study those theories, and it will give you some ideas like on how to carry your research work. It examines how different theories explain the phenomenon. Like for example, reviewing Piaget's and Vygotsky theories on cognitive development in mathematical learning. So it helps you to compare the previous work done by different researchers. So it will give you some idea like how to do the research work. So you can compare different research papers, and from that you can carry on your research work. Okay, next one is empirical review. So this reviews is based on the data and experiments. So this is the it required concrete evidence. Otherwise, the research work will be invalid. So it examines findings, methods, and research from past research. So like for example, like reviewing case studies on the effectiveness of online versus traditional learning in mathematics. So how much data has been provided by the previous research work. So if that research work is unable to provide the sufficient or enough data or enough information about that one, then that research work is not seen as a reliable work. And next one is resource gap. So due to this empirical review, so like I have already said that empirical review depend on the concrete data. So like if the concrete data is not available, then there exists some loopholes or some gaps, and that leads to the gap called research gap. And there are 7 types of research gaps. Okay, so it highlights what has not been studied or needs more investigation. So, like in the previous series work, like there may be some insufficient data, or there can be some areas where studies has not been done. So it helps the researchers to identify the gaps and do more work on that gaps, and make that research work more reliable and more concrete. Okay, next one is knowledgeable gaps. So these gaps exist when there is a lack of information or understanding about a specific topic. Like when we do some research, and if we are unable to provide the required knowledge, or let's say if we are unable to provide the information that our research work demands, then that gap is called knowledge gap. For example, limited research on the long-term effects of AI in education. The next one is the theoretical gap. So this gap arises when existing theories do not fully explain a phenomenon. So let's say, like if we are doing some research work, and if we are unable to prove or unable to give the data about the research work that explains why the work has been done, why the things is occurring, or that thing is happening. So if we are unable to provide sufficient data, then that is called theoretical gap. So, like for example, like current educational theories fail to integrate the role of emotions in mathematical reasoning. So, like we say that our current educational system is very good, yes, but it is still but there is still a lack of emotions in mathematical reasoning. Like our students, they can solve mathematics problem very nicely, yes, but they are unable to connect that mathematics with themselves, with the environment, as with the society. They are unable to connect. So there is some gaps. There are Okay, so this is theoretical gap. Okay, next one is methodological gap. It is a gap due to the absence of appropriate research methods or tools to study a problem effectively. So, like let's say if we are doing research on like how to improve the mathematical understanding of students. So, like for this one, it will be more effective if we use if we do qualitative let's say research work. Yes, because it will help us to understand the main reason why students are lacking. Yes, we can get more knowledge about that one. But if we do quantitative research work, then the required data may not be fulfilled. So there may be some gaps. So this is called methodological gap. So according to the research work, we need to choose our methodology. So, like for example, many studies on real-world applications of mathematics in curricula lack experimental verification. So, like to study the application of mathematics, as we should be able to connect what we are studying in mathematics with the real-world application. Okay, next one is empirical gap. It is a gap that exists when there is insufficient empirical evidence to support or contradict a hypothesis. Like if we are doing a research work, and if we are unable to provide the required data or required evidence to support our research work, then that work lacks then that work is considered as let's say unreliable. So this type of gap is called empirical gap. So, like for example, conflicting research on the effectiveness of rote versus conceptual learning in mathematics education. So like there is still a debate like what type of learning is more effective in mathematics. So some say rote memorization is good, some say conceptual learning is good, but if you look from the both angle, like both are needed. Okay, so next one is practical gap. So a gap that occurs when research does not align with real world application or lacks practical implementation. So we are doing lots of research work, but that is unable to connect, unable to apply in our real world. Yes, we are unable to implement that theories or research or that work with the real world, then that gap is called practical gap. Like for example, research findings on inquiry based learning in mathematics are not widely implemented in schools. So like we know that inquiry based learning, it is one of the methods which helps students to learn mathematics easily and understand and make them more understandable, but still it is not been implemented in different schools of our country. So next one is population gap. So a gap when studies focuses on a limited population and do not consider diverse groups. So like here only certain groups of people, or let's say only some let's say if we collected the data from a few numbers of population, then there may be some lack of information, or there or like we may not get the information which is needed by our research work. So this is called population gap. So like for example, lack of research on how rural students perform in mathematics compared to urban students. Okay, next one is evidence gap. So a gap that exists due to lack of sufficient empirical studies on a topic. So like if we are unable to provide the concrete evidence on our research work, then that gap is called evidence gap. Like for example, lack of large-scale studies on how mathematics anxiety affects students' performance in standardized tests. So like if we are unable to provide the data on mathematics anxiety on a like if we do research on some certain number of students only, then it will not it will not be able to provide the exact data, like why students who are facing from mathematical anxiety are not able to perform good in test. Okay, next one is policy review. So it examines existing policies related to the research topic. It do reviews on the existing policies, and they try to modify, or they try to make that policy work more effective. It identifies policy strengths and weaknesses. So if there are some weaknesses, then they will try to they will try to modify that one and make more effective. Like for example, a review of government policies on teacher training in mathematics education. So like in our country also, like lots of teachers training are being conducted, but are that training effective or not? So on that they can do policy review, and if there are some loopholes, then they can modify, and they can make it more effective. Okay, so conclusion. So what we learned from this literature review is that it helps researchers to understand the existing knowledge for their research work. It helps them to identify the gaps of which guides them for future studies. Reviewing policies ensures research is relevant to real world application, and so by reviewing policies are more effective and more important, or more important policies can be formed. Okay, so this is the references. Okay, so I hope that you have understood a bit about literature review and its importance. So by saying this one, so I would like to say thank you and namaste.